So, good afternoon, everybody. We are going to try dual streaming on Kick today. I'm going to keep this brief, and I received a couple of emails after my last two live streams. The live stream regarding Arctic fogs, I took that down myself. I had a request to remove his legal name. I have since done so. So I will be putting up that stream again at a later date. And the additional questions I received is what's going on with Julie and Brittany J. And there's a lot of opinion going on, which is great. Discussion is great. Um, Ultimately, as I said in my previous live stream, where when words cross the line, it is now in the hands of the court to decide if the statute if there's an infraction on the statute or a law was broken, however you want to word it. Um, I was asked if I could clarify a few points. And again, I'm in Pennsylvania, not New Jersey. However, I have received clarification on the mediation aspect of a citizen's complaint. And I also received some more in-depth details into the actual statute. So I took my notes, I typed up my notes. I've also am going to be supplying a list of source links for you, some websites, documentation with newjersey.gov, the newjersey.gov courts, the some defense attorneys, as well as public information regarding this particular statute that Julie is using to file her complaint, her citizen's complaint. And let's keep in mind, this is a petty dispute. Um, I see some have on Brittany's area have tried to kind of blow this up as if it's some big thing, when in actuality it's just not. That's just not the case. And I've also seen um, reference to the clean hands doctrine and how, well, because Julie is in the shit too, that it's a tit for tat. The clean hands doctrine applies to equitable relief, which is a civil situation. It's a tortious situation. And I'm going to do my best to just give you black and white as far as that goes. So without any further ado, I am going to jump right into this. Hi, Revival. Thanks so much for coming in. I appreciate it. This is going to be about 27 slides. So if I'm not completely focused on chat, I do apologize, but I really want to lay this out here and taking the personalities out of it altogether. Now, I've tried to delineate between what's on the books and my viewpoint by putting things in quotations, if you will. So it would be like in first person first-person speech. So hopefully this doesn't cause any more confusion, but I really think the links are really going to be helpful in understanding the nuance and what this is all about. So here we go. Law and statutes, legal and binding, law versus opinion, and chatters, personalities in the audience, opinions and reactions, the podcaster tales, I disagree, what's the truth, what's my opinion. An overview of NJSA 2C33-4. And we've gone over this before, but it bears repeating. The law states that a person commits a harassment if, with the purpose, hi Mercedes girl, with the purpose to harass another, they engage in any other course of alarming conduct or repeatedly committed acts with purpose to alarm or seriously annoy such other person. It is typically classified as a petty disorderly persons offense. In New Jersey, a lower level criminal offense handled in municipal court. Section C in the broadest and Section C is often the most debated and broadest part of the harassment statute because it covers behavior that may not fall under the more specific subsections. You can find that in codes at Fine Law, New Jersey. Course of alarming conduct. This means a pattern of behavior, not usually a single isolated comment. Courts often look for things like repeated unwanted messages, persistent attempts to contact someone, showing up repeatedly where someone is, conduct intended to unsettle or intimidate someone. The key idea is a pattern, not just one interaction. Repeatedly committed acts. This reinforces the idea of repetition. Examples that courts have examined include multiple calls after being told to stop, or repeated online tagging or messaging. Continual attempts to contact someone through different accounts. One comment or disagreement typically does not satisfy this element unless it is extremely severe. And notice I use severe and not egregious, because egregious, while it would apply, has been overused recently, and I don't want to water down the importance of language here. This is the most important legal element. In New Jersey, prosecutors must prove intent. That means the behavior must be done with the purpose of harassing the person, not merely expressing an opinion, engaging in an argument, criticizing someone, or participating in a debate. Intent is often proven through some examples: prior warning to stop, persistence after blocking, context showing harassment was the goal. Without proof of intent to harass, the statute generally fails. Why Section C is sometimes misunderstood? Because the wording is broad. People sometimes believe it means if someone annoys me repeatedly, it's harassment. But legally, the standard is higher. Courts often require the pattern of conduct and a clear purpose to harass, behavior that would alarm a reasonable person. Without those elements, it may simply be speech, disagreement, or unpleasant behavior, not rising to criminal harassment. Section C, in harassment, a person commits harassment if they engage in a course of alarming conduct, repeated acts, and the purpose to alarm or seriously annoy. This is a combination, in conjunction. Key factors the court will look at, which I received clarification on, was a pattern of behavior, the intent, and the reasonable impact on the target or the recipient of the target, the recipient, and in this case, we know who the parties are. I'm not going to dwell on the individuals specifically. I am strictly doing this by the book, black and white today. Some important distinctions. The statute is often confused with cyber harassment laws, true threat statutes, and stalking. New Jersey actually has a separate law for online harassment. This statute deals specifically with online behavior and threats. Under New Jersey law, harassment usually requires a pattern of behavior done with the intent to harass. It's not enough that someone was annoyed or offended. The conduct has to be repeated and carried out with the purpose of alarming or seriously annoying the other person. In simple terms, the court is asking, where were they trying to bother the person on purpose? What a citizen complaint means in New Jersey. A private citizen can initiate a criminal complaint against another person without police filing the charge first. This is called a private citizen complaint, or sometimes called a citizen complaint. The person filing is called the complainant. The person accused is the defendant. This is common for municipal court offenses, including what's been listed here. Here is also a source. Is there anybody in chat that can let me know if we're buffering? I'm getting a buffering on my end. Okay, I'm going to keep going. How the process works. A person goes to the municipal court in the town where the alleged incident occurred and asks to file a complaint. They must prove name of the accused, address, description of the incident, and the law they believe that's been violated. The court staff cannot advise them on the charge to file. Thank you, Revival. I appreciate it. The complaint is reviewed for probable cause. And several of us have gone over this before, but I am going to reiterate. The complaint is not automatically accepted. A judge or authorized court administrator must determine probable cause before issuing a summons. Probable cause means, is there a reasonable basis to believe a law may have been violated? If probable cause is not found, the complaint does not move forward. If probable cause is found, the court issues either a summons, which is most common, or a complaint or a warrant complaint, which is rare in these minor offenses. What happens afterwards? The accused receives a court date and the case moves to municipal court. What's important to remember, and what the reality of this is, filing a complaint does not equal being proven guilty. This is something that people also often misunderstand. A citizen complaint simply means a judge believed the allegation was sufficient to warrant a hearing. And the key here is allegation. It does not mean the accusation was proven. It only means there's enough to allow the case to proceed. Why harassment charges often appear in citizen complaints. Harassment is one of the most commonly filed private complaints because it involves neighbors, coworkers, online disputes, and personal conflicts. Police may not witness the conduct themselves, so the alleged victim files directly with the court. Anyone can file a citizen complaint, but filing one does not mean the accusation is proven. It only means the court agreed to hear the allegation or to hold a hearing. And we're going to go with Google here with some case law. State v. Hoffman. This is one of the most frequently cited harassment cases in New Jersey. The key takeaway from the court was that the statute is meant to address conduct intended to harass, not simply rude or unpleasant communication. The court emphasized that judges must examine the context of the communication, potential relationship of the parties, and whether the behavior demonstrates a purpose to alarm or seriously annoy. In short, the law does not criminalize ordinary disputes or heated language. State versus Castaneda. This case clarified the annoyance alone is not enough. The court explained that people may engage in behavior that is irritating or inappropriate, but unless the intent was specific to harass, the statute should not apply. The court warned against using the harassment statute to criminalize ordinary interpersonal conflicts. State v. Burkett. This is a very important modern case, especially for speech-related disputes. The New Jersey Supreme Court ruled that subsection 2C33(4) must be interpreted narrowly to avoid violating free speech protections. The court said the law cannot punish speech simply because it is offensive, coarse, crude, or disturbing. Instead, the conduct must rise to the level that is seriously alarming or harassing. We must consider the constitutional protections, and the decision is significantly limited how broadly the statute can be applied. New Jersey courts have repeatedly said that the harassment statute is not meant to criminalize disagreements or unpleasant speech. Some observations that I've made: online communications can appear to be repeated. Another reason harassment statutes get pulled into the online disputes is that digital platforms create permanent, repeatable speech. One comment can become a screenshot, a repost, a commentary thread, or a reaction video. What began as one statement can appear like ongoing conduct. Courts sometimes struggle with this distinction as well, which is why it's important to be precise and have examples of where and by whom. What's the difference? I believe I showed this slide before, but here it is again for if anyone would like to screenshot it. And then this is newjerseycourts.gov/sites/files/charges/harass1.pdf. What does mediation mean? Mediation is an informal, confidential, and voluntary process where a neutral third party helps the disputing parties reach a mutually acceptable agreement instead of having a judge decide the case. Key aspects of New Jersey petty harassment mediation are purpose, to resolve the conflict, diffuse anger, and find a win-win solution, often resulting in the dismissal of the complaint. The mediator is a trained community volunteer approved by the New Jersey Superior Court who acts as an impartial facilitator rather than a judge. The confidentiality. Sessions are private, and what is said cannot be used in subsequent court proceedings if the mediation fails. The process. The mediator helps parties communicate, often meeting with them separately to find common ground. The outcome: if successful, a written agreement is signed, which may include a no-contact provision. If no agreement is reached, the case returns to the court for a formal hearing. Mediation is free. And this is directly from the newjersey.gov/mediation/services/mediation. There will be additional resources at the end of this presentation for you guys to also go look at. It's the actual pamphlet that is handed to people in these situations. In 2024 through 2025, there were some rule amendments. Recent changes emphasize the mediated settlements must be in writing and signed by the parties to be binding, and the scope. Mediation is typically used for minor disputes in municipal court, such as the private citizen's complaints. Exclusions. Mediation is not permitted for cases involving serious injury, repeated violence, domestic violence, or violations of motor vehicle code. And the process, mediators are trained volunteers appointed by the assigned judge. We often use words like harassment, stalking, and threats interchangeably, but legally they mean very different things. The law treats them differently because they involve different levels of harm and intent. A lot of online disputes fall into what might be called social conflict, which often involves criticisms, arguments, commentary, or heated review of online personalities. Those behaviors or the specific words used may violate community rules, but they often do not automatically meet the threshold necessary for a criminal finding. I asked ChatGPT to tell me what this statute means and put it into a flowchart, and this is what it came up with, and how apropos. No matter how you look at it, it's only just possible. Nothing is a guarantee. Criminal versus civil. Let's try to clear some things up. A criminal complaint is about whether someone violated a law against the public. A civil lawsuit is about resolving a dispute between two private parties. Even when a citizen files the complaint, a criminal case is still technically the state versus the defendant, not person versus person. Why clean hands doesn't apply? The clean hands doctrine comes from equity courts, which are part of civil law. The idea is simple. If someone asks a court for fairness, they must also have behaved fairly. For example, in civil cases involving things like contracts, business disputes, restraining orders, or injunctions, a judge might ask, did the person bringing the case also behave improperly? If so, the judge may deny any relief. But in criminal law, that doctrine generally does not apply because the focus is different. The court is asking, did the defendant commit the crime described in the statute? Not, did both parties behave badly? Even if both parties were rude, hostile, or antagonistic with one another, the court still examines whether the elements of the offense were met. Who brings the case? In criminal harassment complaint, it's a citizen filing a complaint, and the case becomes state v. defendant. In civil harassment, it's one party suing another. The purpose is to enforce a criminal law or statute. In civil harassment, it's to resolve a dispute between individuals. The focus of the court in a criminal harassment is, did the defendant violate the statute? In a civil case, did one party harm another, and should compensation or relief be granted? Legal doctrines, criminal law standards, civil doctrines like clean hands are possible, may apply. Outcomes, possible conviction, fines, what have you, money damages, or court orders in the civil court. Imagine, if you will, two neighbors arguing. Both are yelling, both are behaving badly. In a civil case, the judge might say, both of you contributed to this conflict, so neither of you is entitled to equitable relief. But in a criminal harassment complaint, the judge asks narrower questions. Did one person engage in conduct that meets the legal definition of harassment? Even if the other person was rude or argumentative, that does not automatically cancel out the allegation. And again, We are at the allegation stage of making the complaint and it going into the courtroom. The civil court judge often asks, who is at fault in this dispute? In criminal court, the judge asks, did this specific law get broken? I hope that's been helpful. Mutual participation. Both parties are engaged in back and forth exchange. This often looks like a mutual conflict. Courts sometimes refer to this as a mutual dispute or a quarrel, arguing in comment threads, responding to each other repeatedly, debating aggressively, insulting each other. Intent to harass. A harassment statute focuses on purposeful conduct, meant to alarm, seriously annoy, or harass another person. The court looks for things like repeated contact, communication after being told to stop, conduct intended to provoke distress, and that's important as well. Were the words said meant to provoke somebody to feel beyond hurt feelings? Behavior that serves no legitimate purpose. That's also important in this statute. The key word in the statute is usually purpose. Mutual participation versus intent to harass. What feels like harassment to one person may appear to others to be a heated argument or public debate. That's why courts often look closely at context and pattern of behavior. The situation, two people are arguing online, often viewed as mutual conflict. Both parties repeatedly replying may still be mutual participation. One person continues after being told to stop. That could possibly suggest an intent to harass. Repeated unwanted contact outside of the discussion. That may more likely be harassment. A lot of people assume that if two people are arguing online, that neither person can file a harassment complaint because both participated in the conflict. But that's actually a misunderstanding of how the criminal law works. In a civil lawsuit, doctrines like clean hands may apply, meaning the court looks at whether the person bringing the case was also behaving badly or behaved improperly. But at a petty disorderly person's harassment complaint, which is what we're discussing today in New Jersey, it's a criminal matter. No matter how we personally feel, it is a criminal matter. Even when a citizen files the complaint, the court is ultimately asking whether the elements of the statute were violated. The court isn't deciding who was nicer in the argument. It's deciding whether the legal definition of harassment was met as it pertains to the statute. Here are a list of resources. I've also included them in the description of the video on the YouTube side. Hey Earth, thanks for coming in, and I hope you've got your rest. Appreciate you being here. And I hope this has been helpful. I hope it's cleared up a couple of questions. If it hasn't, well, there's plenty of resources at your disposal. And again, this isn't about two people. It's about the law and what the statute is for citizens of New Jersey and what they have at their disposal to avail themselves when they feel that they've been aggrieved in some way. So I would simply ask that, you know what, I'm not going to ask anything. It's the internet. I appreciate y'all being here. And as I said, I hope it's been helpful. And we will see you next time. In the meantime, remember, y'all on YouTube, I do have a kick, and I do go live over there in the mornings for 30 minutes just to have a wind down session that is a rebroadcast of some vintage old school mystery radio theater. And it's just a way to start your day, or if you happen to be on night shift or in a different time zone, to take a break from the doom scroll. So go enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.